Have you ever had that specific, um, slightly terrifying moment where you try to tell someone a truth, something you see so clearly about how the world works, and instead of a nod or a debate, they just glitch?
Glitch is the perfect word for it. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like their software just crashes.
Exactly. You're talking to a friend, someone smart, someone you trust. You bring up a pattern you've noticed, or maybe you question a norm that everyone else just follows blindly,
Right.
and you expect a conversation. But what you get is a shutdown. Their eyes glaze over. Or, even worse, they get instantly irrationally angry.
Oh, yeah.
They look at you like you've just threatened their entire life when all you did was share an idea.
It's a really visceral reaction. It feels less like a disagreement between two people and more like you've just tripped a silent security alarm in a building.
That is exactly what we are unpacking today, according to the stack of research we have here. That reaction, it isn't just a personality quirk. It's not just your friend being stubborn. It is a systemic defense mechanism.
And there's a name for it in our source material, the Agent Smith effect.
Right, the Agent Smith effect.
And it's a concept that suggests that what we're up against in those moments isn't just an opinion. It's a programmed response. It's designed to protect the status quo. The system protects itself through the very people who are plugged into it.
So today, we're going on a deep dive into the system. We're going to unpack how it constructs our reality and how it fiercely defends itself when it gets challenged. But we aren't stopping with, the abstract psychology.
Yeah.
We're going to apply this lens to some very specific and honestly pretty heavy historical and social engineering. We're going to look at the dynamic between black men and women and how sources argue this relationship has been deliberately targeted.
And this is where we move from movie metaphors to the real-world application. We have sources today that argue there has been a manufactured competition, a very specific social architecture designed to break the rhythm within that community.
And because we love a good meta twist, we're going to cap this all off by looking at a fascinating what-if scenario. It involves Will Smith, the movie The Matrix, and a layer of symbolism that might have changed pop culture history forever.
It's a roadmap that takes us from psychology to sociology and then finally to cinema.
So let's get into the Agent Smith effect. I think most people know the reference, but for anyone listening who might have missed the late 90s, let's set the scene. Who is Agent Smith?
Right. So the concept comes from the 1999 film The Matrix. Agent Smith is the villain, but he's not a human villain. He is an AI program, a sentient guardian. His entire purpose in the code is to keep order within the simulation, The Matrix.
Determining threats.
He terminates threats. But the scary part, and the part that really defines this effect, wasn't his fighting skills. It was his ubiquity.
His ability to be anywhere.
Exactly. In the simulation, he could possess the body of anyone who was still plugged in. Neo or Morpheus could be walking through a crowd, pushing past totally normal people, a businessman, a woman in a red dress.
A street vendor.
A street vendor, anyone. But the moment the system detects a threat, or the moment the status quo is challenged, the code overwrites one of those people. They literally morph into Agent Smith.
That visual always stuck with me. You'd be talking to a nice old lady and suddenly, bam, she's the enemy.
And the source material draws a direct parallel to real life here. It argues that because we live in a system of social constructs, rules, norms, beliefs we've been fed since birth, unless a person has taken the time to unprogram or unlearn, that system lives inside them.
So in this analogy, the system isn't just the government or the banks or the corporations out there.
No, it's not external.
It's internal software.
Precisely. And if that internal system is threatened, it defends itself. The person you are talking to effectively becomes an agent. They might not physically transform into Hugo Weaving in a suit,
Right.
but their behavior shifts instantly to protect the construct.
The source gave some really simple examples of this that I liked. Things we just accept as fact, but are actually just agreements we all made. Like, pink is for girls and blue's for boys.
Right. If you really think about it, that is a completely arbitrary assignment. In fact, if you go back to the early 1900s, pink was often considered a strong color for boys, and blue was seen as delicate for girls.
Oh, I didn't know that.
But today, if you put a little boy in a pink dress, some people have a visceral reaction.
You get offended.
They get defensive.
Yeah.
They feel like the rules of reality are being violated. They aren't defending the color spectrum. They are defending the social construct.
Or look at the calendar. December 25th.
Astronomically, it's just another rotation of the Earth. It is no different from December 12th or January 4th. but society decided it was special.
And if you try to treat it like a normal Tuesday, if you insist on working or ignoring the decorations, people get genuinely upset with you.
They do. The source uses a very powerful phrase here. A shared delusion becomes reality.
That's the key, isn't it? If we all believe it, it becomes real. But the Agent Smith moment happens when you poke that delusion.
The source describes a scenario. You're at a coffee shop having a lovely, normal conversation. Then you drop a radical idea. You say something like, money isn't actually real. It's just paper we agreed to value.
It has no intrinsic worth.
Right. And suddenly, the vibe just changes. The air leaves the room.
Your friend disappears.
And Agent Smith pops up. They get defensive. They might attack your intelligence. You don't understand economics or your sanity. You sound like a conspiracy theorist. They are defending the delusion because that delusion is the foundation of their reality. If money isn't real, their job, their savings, their status, it all starts to dissolve.
The source puts it so bluntly. The very people that you are trying to enlighten, inform, and free are the same people who will defend the system that wants to keep them uninformed.
It's tragic in a way. You're trying to offer a key to the cage, but they are terrified of the open door. To the plugged-in mind, you want a liberator, you're a virus, a threat to the stability of their world.
Okay, so that's the mechanism. The system protects itself through the people it disempowers. Now, I want to take this lens, this whole idea of a system engineering our reality, and pivot to the specific case study in our sources regarding the Black community. Because the argument here is that this Agent Smith-style programming isn't just about colors or holidays. It's about the fundamental way people relate to one another.
This is a significant shift in our deep dive, and it's where we move from theory to history. We are looking at a source that argues that the friction, the gender war conversation we often see between Black men and Black women is not natural.
Not inherent.
Not inherent at all. The source explicitly states Black women and Black men were never meant to compete.
Never meant to compete. That's a really strong statement. The source uses the word manufactured.
Yes. The argument is that the system didn't just steal land or labor, historically speaking. It stole alignment. It specifically targeted the masculine-feminine partnership that the source argues was the foundation of the family unit.
Let's unpack the how, because the source doesn't just say it happened. It points to specific mechanisms. One of the big ones mentioned is welfare policies in the mid-20th century.
This is a crucial piece of social engineering history. We're talking about policies like the man in the house rule. These were eligibility requirements for government assistance, and the rule was simple but devastating. If a generic, able-bodied man lives here, we won't help you.
Think about the psychological weight of that. You are a Black father. You are already facing systemic barriers to employment, to high wages. Your family is struggling, and the government comes in and says, we will feed your children, but only if you leave.
It's a forced dilemma. The government effectively replaced the father. It created a structural financial incentive for separation. If the man stays, the family struggles to eat. If he leaves, the state steps in with a check.
It's a policy that engineered a split right in the home.
It made the father's presence a liability to his own children's survival.
That is creating a wound that lasts generations. And then, the source argues, corporate America stepped in to widen that gap.
This is where the concept of control through division comes in. The source argues that as integration progressed, corporations began promoting Black women over Black men. But the critical distinction made here is that it wasn't necessarily because they valued the women more.
Right. It wasn't some benevolent girl power move or genuine feminism.
No. According to the source, it was strategic. It posits that a Black man with power is always a threat to the system, historically, physically, politically. So how do you checkmate that threat?
You elevate the counterpart.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You elevate the Black woman. By doing so, you not only neutralize the man, but you also change the dynamic at home. The source describes a distortion of roles. Respect became tied to
the income.
To the income, to the paycheck. Power became tied to paychecks. The narrative shifted to the woman being the boss of the house because she held the economic keys that were given to her by the very system that excluded the man.
And once that dynamic is in place, once the rhythm is off, as the source calls it, the media reinforces it. We've all seen the tropes.
Oh, yeah. The source lists them clearly. The narrative that Black men aren't enough and Black women are too much. We see the sitcom tropes of the goofy, useless dad or the strong Black woman who doesn't need anyone.
And the source argues this creates a scenario where the individuals just blame each other. The man blames the woman for being overbearing. The woman blames the man for not stepping up.
But neither of them is looking at the system that engineered the imbalance. It's the Agent Smith effect again. They are fighting each other, defending the construct instead of seeing the code.
That is, man, that connects the dots in a really painful way. The source uses some metaphysical language here too, doesn't it? It talks about the law of rhythm.
Yes. The idea is that the relationship between the masculine and feminine is a fundamental rhythm of nature. It's supposed to be cooperative, like a heartbeat. When that rhythm is artificially broken, when you force competition where there should be co-creation, it causes a cascade of failure.
A cascade of failure.
The source says, when the rhythm breaks between black women and black men, the rhythm breaks everywhere, in our money, in our homes, and in our legacy.
So the financial instability or the community issues aren't the root cause. They are actually symptoms of this broken rhythm.
Correct. The core thesis here is that they were meant to co-create. Competition is a violation of their design.
This leads us directly into the concept of social architecture. We have another source that zooms in on what happens when people within this system do achieve success. And it points out a very specific and controversial dynamic regarding dating.
You're referring to the observations about the snow bunny dynamic.
Yeah. I mean, we have to talk about it because it's in the text.
Yeah.
The source notes that often when black men become successful athletes, rappers, business moguls, they are often seen dating white women. The source uses that specific term.
It does. And again, we have to look at why the source claims this happens. It doesn't attribute it to simple personal preference or love is blind. It argues this is by design.
By design. That implies an objective. So what is the objective?
Status signaling. The source argues that the system creates an illusion, and that illusion is that the top of the mountain is a white woman. So the symbol of having made it, of having conquered the system, is paradoxically aligned with whiteness.
You acquire the symbols of the power structure you just climbed.
Correct. So the system programs the definition of the trophy. And on the flip side, look at the narrative pushed on black women. The source notes the black woman is the only woman on the planet who is socially conditioned to believe she can do bad by herself.
I have heard that phrase so many times. I can do bad by myself. It's framed as empowerment, independence. I don't need a man.
But the source frames it as isolation. It asks, is it empowerment or is it a solitary confinement cell disguised as a penthouse? It contrasts the successful man gets a partner narrative with the successful black woman needs no one narrative.
And both of those narratives serve to keep black men and women apart.
Exactly. It paints this picture of a psychological maze. You go one way, you hit a wall of welfare policy. You go another, you hit a media narrative of the useless man. You climb to the top, and the prize is defined by the system you just fought.
It creates a sense of disorientation.
And that disorientation keeps the status quo safe. If they're separated, they can't co-create. If they can't co-create, they can't build a legacy that challenges the system.
Which brings us all the way back to the Matrix. We started with Agent Smith, but there was this fascinating meta layer to this deep dive regarding the casting of the movie itself, because The Matrix is the ultimate movie about the system.
It is, and it almost looked very, very different.
The facts are these. Will Smith, speaking of Smiths, was originally offered the role of Neo.
He was, and he turned it down. He's been very open about this in interviews. He said he just didn't get the vision at the time. The Wachowskis were pitching this camera technique where time stops and people jump in the air.
The bullet time.
The bullet time. And Will Smith just couldn't see it. He admitted he wasn't ready for the philosophical weight of it.
And what did he do instead?
He went on to do Wild Wild West.
Oh, that hurts. That is a painful trade.
A painful choice in hindsight, for sure. But our source brings up something deeper than just box office numbers. There is a discussion about Sophia Stewart.
Right, the African-American author.
Yes. There have been long-standing claims that her manuscript formed the basis for The Matrix. Now, we have to be very clear. The courts dismissed these claims. Legally, the Wachowskis are the creators. We aren't here to relitigate a court case.
But the source suggests we look at the symbolism of the claim and the symbolism of the casting that almost was.
Exactly. The source asks us to imagine, what if Will Smith had played Neo?
It changes the movie, doesn't it?
It changes everything. Think about the narrative of The Matrix. A man wakes up to find he is trapped in a system of control. He has to break the illusion. He has to dismantle the structure.
If that character is a black man.
It becomes a radically different symbol, given the history of racial power structures in America. The very things we just discussed regarding welfare, corporate control, seeing a black man expose and collapse a hidden system would have been explosive.
The source says it would have symbolized resistance, awakening, and systemic disruption on a massive scale.
It would have visually coded the struggle against the system as a struggle for Black liberation, or at least it would have resonated with that struggle very deeply. Imagine the imagery. A Black Neo fighting a white Agent Smith, the ultimate man in the suit.
The optics are just undeniable. It transforms it from a sci-fi action movie into a revolutionary manifesto.
And it connects right back to the Agent Smith effect. The movie is about waking up to the truth. The sources we've looked at today suggest that whether it's gender dynamics, government policies, or media narratives, there is a hidden system operating.
And realizing it is there, seeing the code, that's the first step.
Right. The tragedy of Will Smith turning it down is that we missed out on that specific cultural resonance. But the irony is, even without him, the movie gave us the language to describe what's happening. We used the Matrix and Agent Smith to describe our own reality now.
It's like the universe trying to tell us something, even if the casting didn't quite work out.
It really is.
So we've covered a massive amount of ground. We've gone from the coffee shop argument where your friend turns into an agent, to the breakdown of the family unit through policy, to the snow bunny dynamic, and finally to the Neo that never was.
It's a dense web, but I think the common thread is pretty clear.
What's the main takeaway for you? If you had to distill this for someone listening who feels, I don't know, overwhelmed by all this social engineering.
For me, it's the insidiousness of the Agent Smith effect. The scariest part of the system isn't the laws or the corporations, it's the fact that it conscripts us to be its police force. As the source said, the system lives in us. We enforce the rules that keep us down.
And specifically regarding the source on Black men and women, the takeaway is about recognition.
It's about recognizing that the friction, the competition, it's not organic, it's manufactured. And if you realize something is manufactured, you can choose to stop buying it.
That was the call to action from the source, wasn't it? To return to rhythm.
We were never meant to compete. We were meant to co-create. That's the pivot. To stop looking at the other person as the enemy and realize you're both being played by the same game. If you stop competing, you break the design.
That's a powerful thought. It puts the power back in the hands of the individual to just opt out of the conflict.
Exactly.
Well, this has been quite the journey through the looking glass.
It certainly has.
Before we sign off, I want to leave you, the listener, with a thought that really stuck with me from these sources. We talked a lot about how the system defends itself and how it creates division to maintain control.
It relies on our participation. It relies on us being the agents.
Right. So here is the question. If the competition and division are manufactured, what would happen if we just stopped?
If the shared delusion relies on our belief to become reality, what happens the moment we stop believing?
Does the agent disappear? Does the wall come down?
I think that's something worth thinking about the next time you feel that defensive reflex kick in, or the next time you feel the urge to judge someone based on a narrative you didn't write.
Absolutely. Watch out for the Agent Smiths in your life and maybe check the mirror to make sure you aren't one of them. Thanks for diving in with us.
Take care.